Okay, I think we're
Now,
good.
now I can hear again. Okay, so go ahead.
So I'm assuming contract values is something foilable that you'd have to go through DDC. I don't know what I can release on that.
Are you still within the contract parameters, or have you had to file additional paperwork for additional funding for the project?
Yes and no. We've had allowances and unit prices that have been utilized, and there has been what are they called? There's a contract term for it for extension of time due to holdups at the courthouse.
Well, there again, if you could, I guess I have to foil for this again, but I think that would be something that would be interesting to share for the community. Okay, thanks, Pat.
You're welcome. Andrea, hi. Unmute.
Your recording is not working.
Oh, Andrea, can you hear us?
It's recording. Okay.
Wait. What's going on, Andrea?
Andrea, you're,
You can't hear us?
she can't.
She can hear us, but we can't hear her.
What she's saying.
Oh, okay, what's going on?
Andrea, if you can dial in on a phone line, then we can get back to you, or we'll go around the room.
Right,
and then
yeah, we'll
come
ask
back.
people in the room and we'll come back to you. So this, yeah,
There were people in the room.
he
who
was
had-
sitting at the door. He came and talked to you.
Oh,
Did he
he
leave?
had to leave, yeah.
He had to leave. Okay, so do you know what he wanted to ask?
No, but Johnny Alpert is the firehouse on 87 Lafayette, which is about a half a block from the site, and he's very concerned about this entire occurrence because it's very familiar to him. He's been through this before with his building, so I think he feels that this is very precarious.
She was
also
also
a
a
9/11
9/11 survivor.
Yeah.
Certainly is.
Yeah. All right, so who has a question?
Please state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Gary with Tony Patrick Development Corporation.
Do you mind standing up and
It's a little louder.
so we can hear you? Yeah, it's slower.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say that this past month has been a very trying time for us as the demolition proceeded. Especially for the tenants who live in our building and also for the people who run business around that neighborhood. It's just want to say that first off. So I appreciate your presentation. Thank you for that. At the same time, my first gut question that comes onto my mind is, who provides the independent oversight when decisions are made, when exceedances occur? Because, as you mentioned, an event did occur on the second. And alert was triggered. Things happened, decisions were made. I just want clarification. Is there an independent body saying that exceedances were made and therefore have any type of authority to say, stop?
The independent monitor notifies Gramercy as well as the DDC and the CM team, and we collectively work on the solution.
So obviously, the decision was made on the second to stop. At the same time, the more pressing question was on the ninth. The question was, that decision was made again with regards to the same thing that this, as you say, unqualified inspector with his eyes and ears, seeing as the brick was being bulged out on the second, he said, stop the heavy machinery. Now, someone with eyes and ears does not need to be qualified to see that bricks are being bulged out. So the question now is,
this and also called it out in several press conferences. The city was aware of this and all likelihood of the impacts on surrounding buildings, but chose to ignore it. No surprise the building is impacted. Maybe they just want to take it down and expand the jail site.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me, the audio
Okay.
problem is restarting.
It started?
Yeah, they can't hear.
Yeah, it keeps.
There's a, unfortunately, WebEx put out an alert. There is a both governmental and commercial wide issue for WebEx users. You know, kind of like Zoom issues, every platform is not perfect and unfortunately, there's modern
Okay.
technology.
I'm gonna read what Andrea Jew has to say. Here's what I would have said. As someone who works across the street and has called and emailed when I saw plumes of dust and smoke and reported noise, each time it has been dismissed as it falls within the limits of our monitors. There are 50 kids from low-income families in the pre-program in the Chung Park building. How are we going to assuage the fears of the parents when everything we see and hear does not ensure their safety? The community would like a full stop work order and an independent monitor to ensure the safety of its most vulnerable members. We said that. Thank you, Andrea. And you said the kids have been moved.
The entire pediatric center answer to you, the pediatric center of Charles B. Wang, we asked them to come tonight, but they couldn't, had to be moved specifically because of this demolition. They could not do eye exams, they couldn't do one-on-one consultations.
The daycare, what about
The daycare's still there.
Daycare still there,
Oh,
the
so the daycare.
entire at their
Right,
expense,
okay.
Charles B. Wang.
The dental clinic is.
The daycares.
Dental clinic is still there,
Okay,
because
okay.
they're drilling.
I think I have a question that wasn't answered. I think Jan asked us that in a question, but what's the issue with the reporting and the notifying the agencies of the violation?
So we were not granted access on Monday,
No, I mean, like, he had a list of items. I didn't see every one of them, but.
neither did I.
But I guess there has been a number of times where you haven't reported,
Starting in January.
where you haven't reported to the agencies that there has been a violation. Is there an issue? Is there something that can be improved? What are you gonna start following protocols?
So it's a loaded question, right? So we weren't granted access on Monday. Chung Pack is the one that made the notification.
Yeah.
We met with DOB and we went through it. We weren't granted access in order to
Where about these,
learn of it and make a notification.
where about these injuries?
So the injuries have all gone through DOB. It's not that there's some of those, I don't know which, I could sit here and read these and get into them. Some of them are failure to report fast enough. Something happens on a Friday or a Thursday at 6 PM. We call it in on the next following morning. Once we hear back, they said, oh, it should have been faster. It's not that we didn't report.
May I ask how those are resolved, the ones that?
They're all going through DOB.
And introduce yourself.
So with the problems that Janet brought up, I think there were 3 or 4 of them, is the sum of about $30,000 in fines. In sum, it was the injury and a few other things. How are those resolved ultimately?
They resolved through the DOB. We handled them with the Department of Buildings.
In the sense of what? That there's
You go to a hearing.
back to them that
You go to a hearing, but the hearings, some of them are scheduled and some haven't occurred.
you mean the court hearings?
Excuse me.
All right, so not everything is, it's not
one thing on demolition. But we still have pile driving and all kinds of other things ahead of us. So this is perhaps the most gentle part of the project in a way, because you're gonna be pile driving to build a mega jail, right? And that's gonna be, we know this very well from the World Trade Center site. And that, I fear, and you will, it is your job to assuage my fear in a very good way. That there's no more cracks that'll be made between, no new ones came, and then when you're doing drilling, we get to that project, you tell me that'll be for Lauren, that's not for us. But what are we doing then? What, are these cracks making it worse for us then? I mean, where are we?
So I think the first question you asked was monitoring. The monitors have been in place in our place. It's right on the corner of Center and Walker. That is the closest monitor for dust and air to the area of chunk pack that we are discussing. With regards to the wall itself, you know, even though we are under a stop work order, we went with spray foam and closed up the gaps around the perimeter that existed in the building to minimize and close off water infiltration and dust for the meantime. With regards to the
And tarped it.
and tarped it. So we've done as many mitigation measures as we can until stucco and parging is performed. With regards to future construction activities, we are doing everything according to our plans and rules as best we can. We have sorry.
Go ahead, Chris had, go ahead. Chris is gonna ask a question after me. He
Okay.
wanted to make sure we didn't call on anybody else.
So we are going to continue taking down the wall on the other side. We have newfound knowledge that the walls are built too close to the North Tower. We are developing methods to combat that now. They're still with the engineers. I'm not saying, yes, we're gonna make more cracks. I'm not saying, no, we're not gonna make any more cracks. I'm saying we are designing a new method to take that wall with the newfound knowledge of the offset construction. And we're developing that with DOB.
When are you gonna start working again?
We have to provide plans to DOB. They have to review it and they have to give us the permission to go back to work.
And so before you go back to work, you're going to let us know.
Good work. I mean, I'll let Lauren answer that, how she notifies you, but
Yeah, when the stop work order, it's a partial stop work order, to be clear. So yes,
Right.
there is still activity happening on site. It's just within a certain perimeter around Chung Pact, again, to ensure that, well, and his team are developing the plans to take down the remainder of the wall safely with this new knowledge that they have. We're not impacting that any further. So there's still work activity on site. And then when the partial stop work order is lifted, we will notify the community before we start working on it.
Like more than 24 hours, like,
Yes.
Yeah. I just have one question. First, one comment and then one question. In the presentation you gave, you made it seem like there were no new cracks. It made it seem like we already did the pre-construction analysis and nothing really has changed. However, right now you say in a kind of at the end and not really answering Tammy's question, that's why I just wanted to jump in quickly. There are new cracks, right? And how many cracks have you observed? And is it something we should be worried about?
And I do think in the presentation, we did refer
we
to
did.
cracks and loose
We said
fiber,
that the
yes.
wall was too close.
budget is due, this is really the time where we're receiving comments, feedbacks.
If you can really say whether you thought it would help.
To have, you know, especially
It's a waste of our time.
not just because you're a community board, but also because you're part of the community board in our district. So I think that is.
Shows the pros.
Yes.
She's saying yes.
Okay, so then,
Short
I
answer.
mean, and just like pulling back a little for everybody, these are like, you know, this is negotiation between three parties, right? The Senate, the Assembly, and the governor. So there aren't going to be firm details when you're doing this negotiation. You start with principles,
Right.
and then you move closer and closer to detail. A lot of it's done behind closed doors, you know, sort of for the final thing, and then staff kind of
in the room where.
hammer and.
In the room of three,
Heard as he's
Yeah,
discussing
and then
state
staff like
place.
hammer out.
remember the room
like,
of three?
Details, but so like where we can put input is at that sort of same concept level.
Yeah.
That we support principles. So we don't have to like say, oh, well, you don't have detail, because there won't be detail, but
Right.
these XYZ principles are things
Yeah.
that we support and we advocate for our senator to support it, and we, you know, we give him, you know, that, the power to move on our behalf. or-
I was gonna say, let me
That
just start out
sounds
with
good.
we are concerned that in our community, many people are having to leave our community.
Yeah.
Right, because such and such is happening, the increases in rent and, you know, non-protection, and that we
And people
supported
can't, right,
principle.
afford to move
Right.
in unless they're very wealthy and it's changing the.
I was gonna say, one thing, landlords, the real estate lobby are against good cause eviction. And the other thing is in Independence Plaza, is we have a mishmash, but we have the market rate tenants. First of all, they're not guaranteed, they only have a 1-year lease. And they're not guaranteed even a lease renewal. And then the landlord can raise the rent whatever they want. So instead, so there's a lot of transients coming and going.
Destabilization.
And they're,
these kids can't go to the same
Yeah.
schools or all these things that happen.
and they're not staying, you know, I mean, there's like the people who were there under Mitch Lama who have a certain amount of protections, although some of that can feel very precarious. But, and then the market rate, they tend to be generate decades younger and they're not staying, so they're not
It's
even.
building stability in our
No,
community.
they're not.
Yeah.
And sometimes when they have their start families, they leave, you know.
Yeah.
So what I was gonna say to add to this is for reasoning in CB1, what we've seen with the extraordinary loss of affordable housing,
Yeah.
the rise of luxury and empty apartments,
Yeah.
right? And warehousing has diminished the street life. Number of people who are able to live, work, play, ride subways. And therefore work in the neighborhood.
We might as well say it too. We've lost people of color.
Yeah.
We've lost, you know, low
Socio-
income.
Socioeconomic
So
diversity.
older
We've lost
I'm Pat Moore, I'm the chair. Mariama James is going to be here shortly. She's late. Our district manager is Zach Balmer. And this is the committee. Our council member is here, Christopher Morte. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Ben.
So we're starting with 110 William Street. And gentlemen, would you introduce yourselves?
Paul Mazzacco, General Superintendent.
Now, let me just tell you that, see our owls?
Yes.
You have to like talk to them.
Okay. Paul Mazzacco, General Superintendent for SAPCON, working at 110 William.
Ian Sanderson, Senior Project Manager with SAPCON, full-time on the job, so. And leave us for your primary points of contact, and then
Marcus Gregory, Senior PM on the job as well too, in SAPCON.
All right. Okay, so Pat, I'm gonna let you take this.
Well, I think what would be helpful is to hear an update from these folks, but maybe just for the committee's benefit, I can give a little bit of background of why it is that the community board has asked the reps for the owner of this project and building to come here. For the better part of 10 years or so, every time there's a new tenant in that building, there are problems with the fit outs and the construction for the new tenants that come in there, particularly problems with the demolition work that occurs at night usually, and it's not quiet, it's dusty, and it happens unfortunately right in front of the residential entrances of 80 John Street, 85 John Street, and trickles down to 99 John on occasion. So when we were advised last year, I believe, that as part of a major new leasing in the building by a city agency, by the Administration for Children's Services, ACS, they're going to be moving into some space that used to be occupied by EDC, plus lots of other floors. Big project. We knew there were going to be repeated issues potentially with particularly the demolition and the carting noise. The construction itself doesn't seem to be an issue for the residential neighbors around there. It's really the carting out of the debris. And the problem is that the building's entrance is on William Street at 110. The building's commercial loading dock is on John Street, right across from 85's residential entrance and next to 80 John Street's residential, I'm sorry, next to 85 and across from 80's residential entrance. So typically the haulers, they're really just garbage trucks, would park in front of there, block all the traffic on John Street, and you'd have, the noise, the debris, et cetera. And we had tried to work with, not these guys, prior reps for the landlord, the owner of the building, to correct the problems, and we just got nowhere. We've essentially got told where to go. But with this project, we were concerned because of the size and scope of it. So with thanks to Pat and the community board, and special thanks to Councilmember Marte, whose office has been involved in helping us to get some relief as well. I'm also very thankful that you guys are here, because this is the absolute first time that anyone's communicating with the residential neighborhood about it. So that's a very good thing, and you can be credited for that. The problem, however, is, well, twofold. One, we want to hear an update on how things are going. But yet again, the demolition setup is on John Street, right in front of the residential entrances. It's actually moved farther down the street, closer to William now. But what it's caused is, because of an ongoing project at 80 John Street, which has a DOT permit for some construction containers out front, they've moved the city bikes out in front of the Orange Theory, if folks are familiar with that specific block, and had originally set up the carting demolition operation would go there. But now it's been, in the last couple of weeks, moved across the street, and it's created this, what I call the John Street slalom. So you basically have to drive like this to get around it. And the traffic, as you can imagine, are nightmares. So the one thing I would want to know is why that can't be put on William Street. I mean, we asked for it ahead of time, and the only real reason we were given was it's just more convenient for the haulers to have it on John Street, because they don't have to then interact with pedestrians as much. But the initial stages of removal of debris, everything was coming out of the old HSBC entrance on William Street anyway. Now it's coming out of the loading dock, but it's heading almost down to that same corner anyway. So the conflict with pedestrians is pretty much non-existent any more than it already is. So I really would like you guys to address why you can't, or whether you will, just move that around the corner. I realize it takes up parking spaces. I realize it's gonna be closer to your own building's entrance, which is probably less desirable for your tenants. But it would provide some health and safety relief for the residents and the workers of those buildings on John Street.
So I would say understand your opinion and your, how you perceive the space. Our principal response there is the safety of pedestrians. The way it's set up at this time is that the corral is as close as it can physically be to the loading dock, which prevents us from interacting with the public any more than we need to across the sidewalk. We cross the sidewalk and go right into our corral there, and the local area is kind of separated from that. If we moved it to William Street, that corral would not be there. We would be bringing a forklift down the street, the wrong way up the street onto the William Street side to preload our area.
You didn't bring any photographs, did you, or
We did
slides?
not bring photographs, but we do have printouts here of the site plan. It's stapled, but you could rip some off here.
I took some time, I meant to send them to you, but,
You could take.
We can
I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. That is aside from our own efficiencies that it does generate, it's, if you see here at the corner here, our forklift basically exits our loading dock immediately across the sidewalk and into the corral. Its interaction with pedestrians is minimal. So that's our principal
So
concern.
it's on William Street or it's
It's
on John?
John Street.
It's on
Sorry.
John. It's on John in front of the gym?
Opposite side,
On the
yes.
where they did the-
Yes.
Okay. And what happens, remember, Pat, there's gonna be all of this funneling and barriers?
So that's what's on
and
this plan here. That's
Okay.
the bigger
You're
plan.
gonna get
moving forward.
noise.
Correct.
Okay.
So
And so are
once
you,
this is in place, which we're still waiting for approval from the MTA, once this portion of it's in place, there'll be no interaction with the public. We'll be going directly from our loading dock area directly into the building, never interacting with the public or having any safety concerns as far as that goes.
Patrick, is that an issue?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. What?
You got it.
That's good.
So I think there was a video conference call some months ago, when this was originally kind of percolated up, where we presented a version of this plan. There have been several iterations over time. That's basically to explain that, the end goal, for our logistics plan was to capture, the one lane of John Street and the sidewalk such that we could, isolate the material, and the debris that's coming out tight to the building, outside of the public's like reach, and bring it right in and out of the building without interacting at all. That plan has been kind of stonewalled right now. I don't want to say stonewalled, but slowed down through the agency process. We have been to DOT, we've been to Con Edison, we have been to DEP about this plan. We are currently waiting for its approval with the MTA. So that's kind of why we don't have this in place. We
Sorry,
have the
what does the
corral.
MTA have to do with it?
There's a station.
There's a station
Yeah, on William Street.
Yeah, it's the
on John,
Yeah.
into the
one
building.
that closes at 6 p.m., but it's open
Yeah.
throughout the day.
You gotta go through the building.
There's an
and
entrance
stay.
inside the building itself. Oh, right, right. That's right, yeah.
Oh, do you have?
Yeah, I used to work down the street. Yeah, okay, so you're waiting for MTA to give you approval to do what?
So we would shutter that entrance full time. You would still be able to enter that station on William through the building
Right.
and through the other entrance that's kind of between 110 and 130 William.
Okay.
But just that shutter gate would come down full time, and then we would be isolated away from the general public.
I think they're never gonna let you do that, right?
I think it's going to take.
There's a
time.
coffee shop down there. I mean,
However,
they're- it's commercial, you'll never,
We've been
You'll
meeting
shut them
with
out.
them, and we had a call with them yesterday evening.
Yeah, we had a call with them on Monday afternoon. There has been verbals that have been provided previously. It was reiterated again that it was an approval that was basically imminent at this point. That's-
I missed that. There's an approval, that's what?
Imminent at this point, sorry, I'll
That will,
stand up.
that's
From the MTA?
Okay.
Yes.
So just what happens, I'm just curious, the proprietor of the coffee shop, is there any compensation or what's the process for that? as
Have you
opposed
offered
to
them alternative
you know,
space?
Losing everything?
So I think that the conversation with MTA is more focused on the approval and the feasibility. of shutting that down? There hasn't been any conversations in regards to the coffee shop, I don't believe.
The coffee shop is a tenant of the building, and that is a venture or an engagement between the owner.
So
and the
basically
renter
not
in the building.
But
directly.
Mitch,
All right.
hold on a second.
That's cool.
So, that's number one, that there should be something, you
Some
know.
level of understanding with the tenant, yes.
Okay, and number two, what's plan B if you don't get approval from MTA?
It's what we have in place right now. It's the Yodoc Corral. Like it's a one-lane closure against the building side.
And so what's wrong with keeping that plan as opposed to closing down the coffee shop?
There's a lot of construction that needs to happen, a lot of debris that has to come out to his point. And having that small of a closure is gonna be a logistical nightmare.
Well, if you take that sidewalk, right, and you're not interacting with pedestrians because you've shut that piece of real estate down, go around the corner.
We would
You can
then,
do it then.
we'd still have to take a forklift or whatever, pallet jack, whatever it may be, out of the corral, out of the loading dock, onto the street or onto the sidewalk.
We can't do that either way, right?
Without this plan, we would have to do that no matter what, right?
But with this plan, you don't have to have a forklift on the street, correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
You wouldn't
You
need a
drive it
forklift
down the
at all.
sidewalk, right?
No, with this plan, no. This plan has a loading dock that is built at elevation of the John Street entrance to the building. It is the same elevation of the lobby floor plan. We would go right off the loading dock straight into the building.
So we're waiting at this point for MTA to give approval,
Correct.
but we're still concerned about the coffee shop and what kind of compensation they're going to get.
Correct. And that, we're the general contractor. That is a conversation happening between the coffee shop owner and the building.
Do you know if that's happening?
I am aware that they've had a conversation. I don't know the extent of that, but I do know that they are mutually aware of the situation.
Because that kind of impacts, I mean, if the coffee shop owner says, no, I'm sorry, there isn't anything you can do to compensate me, that I need to keep my business open, then your plan is shot.
That ultimately would have to come to us through the building owner. We don't have.
No, I get it. I'm just saying, if the coffee shop owner decides that, no, there isn't anything you can do to compensate them.
Is there space somewhere in the building that the coffee shop owner can be moved that is in the same sort of traffic pathway that goes to? I'll let these guys answer. They know, they're taking over that whole area for construction. Is there an area that's not being taken over?
I'm not aware of a retail space within the building that is not being taken over or not occupied by the FedEx.
That's a weird piece of
Store.
And just out of curiosity, so when you finish with this project, the coffee shop can resume business? You wouldn't?
Correct.
Okay.
There is nothing preventing access to the coffee shop through the building and through, that would get you down into the subway entrance based on our plan. However, it would certainly affect the just passerbys in that tunnel.
I think it's worthwhile to go back to the building and ask if there is an update. If we're aware that the conversation has been had, maybe within the last month or 2 months, however long since the last conversation has been had, they can provide an update to let us know. Because if conversations are already discussed and agreed to, then maybe this is a moot point.
Right.
Does this sound what you're trying to solve?
No, I mean, that's what I was just gonna say. I think the bigger issue remains having this demolition occurring on John Street because of the health and safety issues of the residents and workers of the residential buildings.
Sorry, Patrick, I missed the last half of the sentence.
Because of the residents and the workers of the residential buildings, whether they're having it, not interact as much with pedestrians right at their loading dock or not, the crushing and all that activity is still happening on John Street as opposed to where it logically should happen, which is on William Street. There's no residential entrance right across from where they would be doing that. The only entrance is in fact the entrance to their own building, which I get, that's the incentive why they don't want to do it, but too bad. I mean, I think, I don't know, I think DOT should be rethinking this one and putting it around on William Street. And I know William Street isn't too small for something like this because there's another one right here on I guess that's the southwest corner of William and John, adjacent to 59 Maiden Lane, where whoever owns that building is doing similar work. They've got to
We've
construct.
had a lot of that construction going on over the
So has John.
last few years, yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have a dust mitigation plan in place. We do have a sound mitigation plan in place. So with no noise, hard start at 8 AM, nothing prior to that. And then we use hoses while doing the dumps.
They don't do it. I can tell you Absolutely not doing it, unless you've got somebody out there policing them the entire time.
Who were here for construction projects, for another project, and I will tell you quite frankly, if I asked any one of them who are here about that one that's been in progress, if they felt that those mitigation steps were enough, I don't think I'd get one hand that would say yes. So I appreciate from a construction point, but from a live there point, William Street does not affect any residents because there are no residential entrances there.
And also, we have always asked that 8 a.m. start time be a quiet start time, that you do your noisy work after 8 a.m., that you do not start with your noisy work at 8 a.m. Because people are getting up and trying to go work, or if they work at home, they're getting their day started. But, I don't know, Pat, go.
I
I
don't know,
agree.
they're not gonna do it on their own, I think DOT's gotta tell them to do it, but.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a
it
conversation.
feels like the work should be on William Street and not, there are 3 buildings being impacted by your work on John Street. There are 3 buildings on John Street, right?
There are 2 directly on the same block, but the residents of 99 John have had problems over the years too.
Is the retail on William empty at the moment?
It's in the construction. That's part of what we're doing.
Yes, the corner where, I guess it was an
HSBC.
Is going to be the,
Right.
lobby. Another lobby for the tenant.
The HSBC is gonna become what now? No, it's empty.
Oh, yeah.
Secondary lobby.
Tenant specific lobby.
ACS needed their own.
They want their own.
Is there a way to instead of having it go out the loading dock and down the block and around the corner, is there a way to build a temporary dock in the base of one of those retail spaces that are empty at the moment?
Fortunately not. The lobby is one of the first spaces to be turned over so that ACS can make the move and begin operations. So that.
But that won't be turned over until the primary major construction work is done, correct?
Correct, but the
So-
process of building it is gonna begin at the beginning of the work.
But why can't you potentially have the loadout out there through that space onto William? When all of the major loadout is done, then move over to John.
So we're adding elevators, right in that entrance there. We gotta do steel work and there's a whole build out for that entrance where the
Yeah, but still, why can't you,
There are
that's
multiple retail
deconstruction and removal?
On William, there's only one?
It's the only other one is the FedEx.
How long is the project scheduled to go?
Total duration of the project is slated to go from approximately now till July of 25.
July of 25?
Right, so we're looking at a year and a half, and how much of that time are you gonna have the demo trucks out there, the entire project?
So the principal demolition is scheduled to complete probably September of this year.
When you say principal,
Like,
that sounds very qualified.
so it's qualified, but the movement of large debris that's effectively make-ready work, so spaces that are existing offices, cleaning them out slab to slab and getting that debris out so we can build new is gonna be through September. That I think is what your
So-
primary concern
But that's
is.
what we're saying, then, in September, then why can't you move the rest of the outload or load out onto John Street? After you've done it on William Street, the major work until September, and then look around the corner. And then start the entrance from A to B.
Okay.
Because that floor plate, that lobby, the construction of it to make it finished space usable is gonna begin imminently. The amount of manpower and materials inside the space will make it dangerous to try to move debris out through the area. Not to mention that we'd have to cross a public corridor inside the building from the freight elevators that go up the high rise into that space.
I mean, you're not leaving us with any alternatives here. You're just telling us you have to do it this way and this is it.
I've personally spent a lot of time reviewing our logistics plan, developing our logistics plan to figure out what is the least impactful way to go about it.
Impactful to whom?
To both the community and the interior tenants, and believe that this is the best option.
But we're telling you it's the most impactful to the residents.
And it was when we did have a pre-meeting about the discussion about this entire project, that our primary question and concerns that were raised at the time when you first talked to us was about the impacts to the 99 John across the street, knowing that there are no impacts to residents on William. And so I find it a little bit disingenuous that there was never a fully investigated opportunity for anyone outside your building of concern. It feels that way because you're telling us exactly the same thing, that there's been nothing, there's nothing, there's nothing, there's nothing. And proceeding along the same path.
From a construction perspective, the request to move this material inside the building through that space just shifts the concern for safety from the public that are on the exterior to the people inside the building who are working. Because you're going to effectively double the amount of men that would be in that space working at any given time.
How does that?
Because you will have simultaneously people constructing the space to make it a finished space while also removing through the same area debris from the upper floors.
No, but I don't understand why you couldn't deconstruct, remove the materials until September, which is when you said you'd be finished with your major large pieces that you needed to remove from the building.
I think I'm not understanding what you're.
We were asking for, even if it meant a slightly longer duration of your project, to prioritize the safety of both in and exterior public, and not choose one to be sacrificed. Quality of life and safety, right, and health impacts. And whether, if that meant making the project 90 days, 120 days longer, but finding a way to do safeguarding for both interior and exterior by doing your load out first and then build the lobby. That's what we were asking, and we've asked that from the beginning. And what I'm being told is, for budget, for reasons, for this, for that, we've chosen that the outside is not as, is going to be compromised, not the inside, because that's working better for our timeline and our budget.
I understand what you're saying, and that is valid. What you're saying is valid. It is technically possible to do what you are saying.
Being right is the booby prize is where I'm going.
Yeah,
And that's not-
it is. It's technically possible. There are impacts to both us and the tenant to go that route, but it is technically possible.
And the tenant. Okay,
I understand, but it is technically possible.
okay, so why don't you go back and figure that out, and then come back to us?
It's a city project, ACS, correct?
Correct.
So the city should not be choosing which members of the public that they decide are more valuable than others, whether it's the inside of the building or the outside of the building. The city, as a safeguard to our society, should be looking for the best way to protect both. So I send you back with a challenge to find a way to protect both, even if it means another 90 to 120 days on the project. I mean, for you guys, it shouldn't be that bad unless you have a pushback on deadline and timeline for penalties. Yeah. Do you? Is there a financial penalty if you're not done within X number of days?
I don't know what the agreement between the landlord and the tenant says.
Okay, so then why don't you go back and figure it out and come back and see us next
Yes,
month?
we'd really hate to have to do a resolution that says that we didn't think that the city took any primary concern and care for the residents on the outside of the building. And that ACS, who's supposed to safeguard all of the children in the city, is putting the ones across the street in less value than the ones that come and see them.
And also, just remember, down here, we've lived with a lot of construction for a lot of years. And it is not fair that the city has encouraged people to move down here and make their home down here. And now projects are impacting their quality of life. It isn't fair. So if there's absolutely no way you can do this, you'll come back and you'll let us know. But if you can do it, you'll come back and you'll let us know.
Or can we invite the one who owns the contract on the space, to come back and explain to the public, so it's not even less like it.
Just one quick point to add. So I think one of the big components for this plan, I think we talked about it before, was that the isolation from the public for us was, I think in this plan, the highest. If we go back, we go to the drawing board and we take another logistics plan to see if we can come into the William Street side. If that quality of life, if that safety is not deemed as efficient as this plan, is that something that you guys want to consider to move back to this plan? Or what is the main factor that we can go back and try to figure out a new logistics plan for it.
If you came back to us and didn't say, well, we're gonna truck it down the street because we're not willing to add the additional time to go through the lobby that's not being used to create the second lobby, that's something else, because that's already been floated by us, and we've already said, why can't you use the lobby on the inside? So the question would be to come back and see how you can safeguard both without trucking it down the street.
Okay.
Because
We haven't handled it. Catherine? Catherine, unmute.
Hello?
Hi.
What happened?
You can
Your hand up to speak. Would you like to speak? Okay.
Nope. Okay.
Catherine, did you want to speak on this project?
No, I'm waiting for the jail.
Okay. You had your hand up. Okay, so let's leave it that you guys are gonna go back to the drawing board, rethink, and come back to us next month.
I think there was also going to take away to look into the buildings conversations with the coffee shop, correct? We can always follow up with that one as well.
Yeah, please do. Because we don't want one of our businesses, our local businesses, to suffer unnecessarily. We'd appreciate it.
Can I just say one thing? So when it comes to the safety of the public, this duration, like this plan that we have kind of set in place, completely isolates us from the public. I understand the resident portion of this on that side of the street, but this, if you go by this, if this actually does.
I understand that it isolates you physically, but it
Right.
doesn't isolate you in terms of noise. And
So like maybe a later start or something if we can't come forward with a better logistical
we
plan.
can talk about that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all, but also if you exit on William Street, you're isolated from the public also, aren't you?
No, because there's no way to put a ramp that connects that side of the street to the building. This has a ramp connected to the building, so we don't have to impede
You
with.
can't build something?
Isn't it that great?
No, that lobby is elevated on that
Yeah,
side of the street. And at William Street, on John Street, it's elevated, slants down towards,
So wouldn't you just be able to come out at grade
On William?
on William?
so that is what Paul is trying to say, that you would then be interacting and engaging with the public because of that.
But wouldn't it be barricaded from the public and they'd have to cross the street?
Like everything else, you close the sidewalk like you would on any other.
And take that lane of traffic right
To
there?
close that whole, so you were talking about closing that whole entire block off, I just want to make
No,
sure that I'm.
no, because you have businesses there. But
That's where I was
still
gonna go.
Closing in front of, because you have the FedEx there.
That's where they're building.
Narrow street though.
No, the FedEx is not closed.
No, it's not the FedEx.
FedEx is down the block.
But they can't close.
Down
the
the
block.
block.
FedEx is past the building's main
Right.
entrance.
Right, so they would
So they would
close,
never interfere with it.
you close the
Nothing
corner to
but
the
their,
There's only one lane of traffic.
Yeah,
and
that's
one
a
lane of
very-
parking on William. It's a very narrow. Very narrow.
Yeah, but it's had so much construction already. It's wider than John Street.
I believe they're about the same.
The same, yeah.
So you don't need to build around.
Well, anyway, let's leave it at,
Can I ask one question? It's my own education, and this might be a pipe dream, between the construction company, the MTA, and possibly the landlord, is there any, insurance that the powers that be have that would cover, say, a business that through a man-made situation like that, a severe loss of business for 6, 7, 8, 9 months a year, would there be any insurance that would cover that, or is that just like something that I wish would be in the
okay,
world?
they don't know that, Mitch, and they're going back, they're gonna go
Well,
back
how do you
and
have-
come back. with a plan. How would they know if there's insurance?
I don't know, that's why I asked.
I mean, that's business interruption insurance, and that would be.
I just don't know if that's something that's standard as I said, for my own.
Do you know the answer to that? No. I think we'll add that to the conversation with the building.
I mean, that's.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So can we plan that,
That
come
would be
back
good.
next month? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And again, credit to these guys for coming. I mean,
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. And being open
Conversation.
to having a discussion about it. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because they
That
have
might be something
suffered
important to have in the future.
previous
for
construction.
companies
And I'm
to
sorry
alleviate,
that
the
it's you
stress
guys
of
here
the
taking the heat
business,
for
that-
the
everything.
building owner and ACS, but as the project manager, we appreciate the partnership and coming.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that are gonna be building and we're living it day to day. We wanna make make sure that the people that are also down there are not getting affected, right? So
We like
if it
hearing that.
requires, us going back to take a look at this, so be able, we'll go back and take a look and then we'll see if we can come up with a better solution.
Great attitude. Thank you. We appreciate it. So we'll see you next month. We are the third Wednesday. I don't know the date. So we'll contact you, all right? And if you hear anything before, contact us.
Yeah, is there, who should we reach
Zach.
out to?
17th.
Zach, okay.
Zach, and otherwise we'll see you the 17th.
The 17th.
That, 'cause, I mean, if you hear anything before, we
Yeah,
can.
because I think we'd rather get some, if there's a better solution that we'd like to present well before March 7th.
Yeah, we could do a
April
Zoom
17th,
meeting
let's do that.
with, so please.
Okay,
Okay, great. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
So.
So we're gonna move right ahead to the hospital. So that, because you have a 5-minute presentation and then we're going to the.
You're going to jail? You're going to go to jail.
Hospital is jail.
So
Hi,
information-
good evening. My name is Chuman Lai. I'm the Community Affair Manager from the New York Presbyterian Lower Manhattan Hospital, which is like half a block across the street. So Seth can pull up my slide. I kind of just want to give you a brief update, some of the external work that I'm doing representing the hospital. As some of you may have recognized me, I've been working in the hospital for 23 years. I spent my first 10 years working in-house, doing a lot of the medical interpretation. I'm the one that started the 24/7 interpretation services for our Chinese patient, because back then we do have like 50% of our patient population that are from different parts of the Chinese community. But now, things have changed, but we still have on-site staff interpreter, but we also use the interpretation line, the phone line and the video sources as well. Okay, next slide. So as you all know, last year and also during the pandemic, we have a lot of homeless patients, in the community. And we also have an increase of migrant families this past winter, that come on board, at our neighborhood, dropping off at different, hotel or shelter, So because of that, we have started some pop-up clinics. So we actually just signed the MOU with Bowery Mission at 90 Lafayette Street. We're gonna start probably, we're talking about like early May, that we're gonna start to do like a one-time pop-up clinic, working with the resident at the Bowery Mission. And we will have a team of nurses and maybe a PA to be on site, to serve those patients and follow up with their care. And we will, also do referral, for them to follow, like to have continued care, outside, wherever they're going, and they're welcome.
Is it new patients or old patients? A mixture of both.
Both, because most of those residents there are only there for 7 days, from what I understand. But they could come back, to our service, like once they identify like which day of the month we're here, they could come back and we're open, for the new patient and also like the old patient as well. Yeah. So, I mean, the main point is to like, keep them, in loop of what's going on. We don't want them to fall between the crack. And we certainly don't want them to like just run to the emergency room, to get home. At the same time, our pediatric doctors also did a kind of a pilot visit to the migrant shelter nearby at, I believe it's 52 William Street. So because we see a lot of babies and young children, end up in our emergency room, so we know they don't have any place to turn to and they don't have anyone, right? So we want to kind of like be proactive about it. So we rather like go to them, teach the parents how they should take care of their young child. If there's something, that happened, during the day, instead of waiting like late at the evening, there are other places that they could go to, or there's other alternatives. So we also, we have some like local clinic, that we partner with so that we could send, these families to get help, during the daytime and hopefully like, to resolve the issues. And we also working with like local CDOs to help them to get like emergency insurance. Okay, so my understanding, I believe, is Amblin Health that may have something possibly open, but, you know, we still continue to search around, you know, what's out there. Next one. Majority of my time, we actually do a lot of community education as we believe, you know, prevention is the best medicine. We don't want people like ending up, you know, like really, really sick at the end stage at our emergency room, because I always share in the public, doctors are not magicians. They don't have a magic wand. They don't have a remedy, you know, to just cure any disease. But if you start early, we could help you, especially with the advanced medicine and science. You know, there are new technology, new treatments, you know, new medication that can, you know, control your symptom, you know, and that could give you a quality of life, you know, not as compared, you know, in the past. So we also partner with churches. We just recently last month is a Heart Health Month. So we attend an event at Pace University, you know, working with the students and their faculty. We also do a lot of career day fair with young high school students, because nowadays we really want to prepare the workforce for the, you know, incoming institution. And we want to give more choices for young generation. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor or a nurse. You could be a cook. Okay, we have a wonderful chef, okay, that won, you know, many awards. A lot of some of your camp members, you know, that came to my meeting, right, Diane, enjoyed the food, you know, that we gave them, you know. You know, we have finance, you know, like accounting, right? We need many accounting people, you know. So there are a lot of other careers, you know, within the hospital. This is something I learned. I never end up, you know, thinking myself end up working in the hospital. I was trained as a teacher, you know, but my career is kind of still related to education, you know, but there's a lot of, you know, opportunity out there, and we just want to give more choices and well prepared, you know, the younger generation. Next one. Some questions? Yes. Okay. So here are just 5 major category that we are focused on this year. Because, you know, we do surround with, like, you know, you guys just heard, you know, there's a lot of residents, family here. So we are very focused on serving the young children and the families. So injury prevention is one major topic. You know, we always see a lot of kids, you know, get themselves hurt on bike riding or roller skate or whatever, you know. So we want to prepare parents, you know, and, you know, their older grandparents, how they take care of kids, you know, when they hurt themselves. We also very focused on oncology now, because we find that people are at the age, you know, being diagnosed to have cancer is getting younger. Okay, just like breast cancer, people used to encourage like women, you know, oh, you must continue to have mammogram, you know, once you pass 40. Now we say, no, you have to do it at 35. And if you have a history of family, you know, who have breast cancer, you should start 30 years old, you know. So we want to provide more services on screening and prevention, okay? Mental health, okay? I'm sure everyone agree, right? After the pandemic, so many people suffer from depression, from the isolation, okay? And you know, it's not only for the elders, but also for the young, for the kids, and for the high school student as well. We see a very high increase of suicidal rate because of the social isolation. Okay, for prevention and heart and stroke health is always a prevalence at this area, because many of our seniors, you know, have chronic illness that kind of linger, you know, to all these major illnesses. Okay, and the next slide. Is the last one. So these are just some upcoming events. Today, you know, this morning, we just have a very simple talk, you know, to 180 seniors at Chinese Island Council Center, just to teach them how they should communicate with their doctor. Okay, because a lot of people don't think about, oh, I just have a date for doctor appointments, I go to see the doctor. But how do you prepare yourself? what are you gonna talk to your doctor? Like, you probably only have like, you've been waiting in the lobby, at the waiting room for an hour, but you probably spend 5 minutes, right? Or less than 10 minutes with your doctor. So you really need to pinpoint what you want to ask, what you need to tell the doctor, okay? Why you're here for this visit? Why is it different from last time, okay? How do you prepare yourself? Your medication list, okay? Your family history. If this is a new consult, right? What do you need to explain to the doctor why you're here, okay, today? So these are just some of the things that we here to educate, our public. We also do a lot of other health fair, like we go to Brooklyn. We also are gonna participate at the YMCA Healthy Kids Day, where we're gonna do a lot of board games, with young children. And the last thing is, we mentioned about mental health. So there's going to be a mental health awareness fair at the YMCA by University Settlement. And we welcome people, to come in because this is a major hot topic. And we started last year and many people wanted to hear more. So there's going to be more to come, at different area where we're going to mention about mental health. We also have virtual workshop on that as well, just so that we could capture, more audience, across the other boroughs as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it, my presentation.
Go ahead.
Okay, yes, so before I came, I know, the board have sent me some questions related to the Beth Israel closure. Okay, I don't really have all the details to answer you, but I just want to share some point with you. We are anticipating some increase of patient volume. That's obvious, right? Because we are now the only hospital below 14th Street, okay? But I do want to remind everyone, 12 years ago, when St. Vincent closed, we are here, okay? We're still here 12 years later. So this is not something new to our hospital. Our team, are prepared. We have like monthly and actually not monthly, but weekly, okay, meetings, with the leadership team, how we anticipate if we see any like influx or any specials, rise, we are prepared, okay, across the board, okay? And also, think of this too. Now, we're not a small community hospital anymore. We are part of a big system. So especially if you remember when Sandy came, what happened? We closed the hospital because of the shutdown of the gas pipe, but we were able to ship all our patients out safely to other campuses across the city. So we're gonna have the backup support from our big hospital at 68th Street, at Cornell, at Columbia. So whatever services that we need, okay? I remember there's one question about transferring patient. So not just because of the BI closure, but we still do transfer patients to other campuses because of their needs, okay? If they need some higher level of care that we cannot provide here down here, we can send patient up there. There's no problem with it, okay? So that's my thought with you.
So it's more of a comment than a question ultimately. I mean, so it's the one, there's effectively no hospital on the west side below 59th Street other than the Healthplex. And now you have this as really the lone freestanding hospital below 20-something, right, all the way downtown, that there's no closes. It would be good to get even more investment from New York Presbyterian at this hospital downtown, because it really is the only lifeline for a large part of the population.
So to your point, actually, we had started asking this question a few years ago when we want to expand our hospital. Unfortunately, we can't really find any location on the east side because it's become a flood zone. There was a time that we purchased a property, and then it was not, qualified for a hospital. So we are consistently looking for a new place to build a new hospital. The reason that is because we're our current location, because of the building code and whatever reason, we cannot really continue to go up.
Right.
So if there is a new space that you guys can recommend us, please let us know, okay?
The population down here has increased substantially too over the past 2 years.
I agree.
There's an empty lot on Center and White Street.
Center and White?
That's an, where they've demolished the jails.
We will actually, we will actually discuss if we find a site. Mariana, you have something?
Yeah, thank you. The presentation was very detailed and thorough. I appreciate it. We originally asked Tammy to prioritize this item, if we have this item I have here, because you mentioned, for example, the increase in oncology. For us downtown, it's not just a general thing. We specifically have an increase because of 9/11. And so soon to, say that there's going to be an increase in population in the hospital, there is, of course, concern, not even just concern, there's fear, honestly. I was late today because I had to take my daughter to the cardiologist. She was in the emergency room the other day. And right away, the first thing you're going to think of when anything happens down here is 9/11. So I think there's going to be a larger concern about the emergency room services that I'm not sure we really touched on so much in the presentation, but that's what people are really going to be worried about, because the next emergency room that can really handle major issues is going to be Bellevue. Nobody's going to go to Gouverneur or whatever. Like, these are not sustainable,
So, I mean,
substantial.
so thank you for bringing up the emergency room. So as you know, before 9/11, right, our emergency room is very small. I remember 2001 when I first worked in the hospital, it's a very small emergency. That's because after 9/11, what happened, and we are very grateful, for the donation from the community, we were able to expand our emergency room like 3 times of the size, okay? Now, we are.
I'm sorry, the people standing at the door. If you need to talk, please go down the hall.
Everything that you say can be picked up on the cameras and the microphones. If you're standing at the edges or you're whispering on the sides, and the people online cannot hear the speaker response. I apologize. Thank you.
So we actually are expanding our emergency room space because we are moving our infusion center next to the emergency room upstairs to the first floor. So that will give us, more space, to accommodate more patients, so that's one good news to share. So we are thinking of that, but as I said, still, it is a very tight spot, but we try to utilize, more effectively on the space. And we try to brainstorm, so whatever good ideas, we're welcome to hear from you.
And if you want to make it a ongoing, item on our agenda, if you want to come like every 3 months or so.
Sure. Yes.
What's going on. And
Yes,
yes,
actually come
you're
back.
working with Francis, so.
Of course.
That would be
Yes.
great. We'd love to see you.
Okay.
Hear what's happening in the
All
hospital.
right. Thank you so much.
We have another question. Thank you.
I was reading that at a certain point, the New York Presbyterian was going to drop Aetna, people who were insured by Aetna, and I think I believe they reached a deal.
It's resolved. I can tell you, they haven't been officially out yet, but I was just finished my internal meeting.
It's official as of today,
Yeah.
because I got notification.
So thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have one last question, because one of the conversations that we've been having in the community very strongly is about increased capacity and whether or not the lower Manhattan facility can handle an increased capacity with ambulance routes. And I don't know if you know about that, because Beth Israel has 5 ambulance routes.
Right.
And I know that if you call the fire department from downtown in our neighborhood,
Right.
FDNY sends, but how do the ambulances work at Lower Manhattan? Because I'm trying to understand what the coordination could possibly be.
I don't have the exact answer, but from my observation, our ambulance is being managed by a central office. So they do have routes, okay, and they do have standpoint around each neighborhood. So I could imagine, with the anticipation of the closure of BI, I'm sure they will increase the route, to have more ambulance, because they're gonna be doing circulation around the area, around 14th Street as well,
And don't they take you to the closest hospital?
Yeah.
No, it's a lot of it is managed by 911.
Right.
So 911 has their own like screen dispatch center, and so whatever makes sense to them, they'll send it accordingly. And I mean,
Based on the symptom too, like.
exactly.
But I think my concern is, based off of personal experience, 911 dispatched an ambulance, the equipment wasn't working, they had to dispatch a second one. And that's only on, it's the portable equipment, so they had to dispatch a second one for a child. Now, that it concerns me for response time and impacts, if Mount Sinai no longer has 5 ambulance routes in that zone, and that falls back down onto your hospital, what provisions and budget and things like that are being input into your facility to be able to handle that overflow?
Right. I will bring this back, to our team, and have the leadership, to really answer that question, but I'm sure this is something that they are paying attention on, because like I said, in the past, right, we have certain jurisdiction, like which area we cover, but now we're covering a bigger area, I'm sure they have add into that, into the budget and also, staffing issue as well.
So you come back in June, you'll have more answers.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you have any other questions, just email me, and I'll be happy to.
We definitely would like you to come back with that, and also, for the ER bed capacity, and specifically for the psych beds. Also particular, if they do open a shelter, 2 shelters in Lower Manhattan that are scheduled to open within the next year and a half. Across the street from here. One right across, one on your street and one down the road. So understanding that and a little bit more would be really important. And
Councilmember Marti had something.
Yes.
The Beth Israel thing is not a done deal. There's a lawsuit that got, a temporary restraining order on it. And there's discussions of maybe not a complete shutdown, maybe a downsize. There's a lot of things in conversation on the state level.
So we may not have.
It'd be
So we don't know what's gonna happen.
either way, even if they downsize, it'd be great to have the understanding of the capacity for our hospital, especially because now beyond the 2 new shelters that we have that are gonna open, we also have 3 residential buildings that'll add another 35 or 3 to 4,000 apartments downtown.
So including it, is there a violence coming on the song?
But we have 3 huge towers.
Huge. I mean, are you talking about on my side? Did you even consider
talking-
125 Greenwich by
World Trade, the New York Plaza